Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about using the distributive property. We wanted to practice applying it a couple of times, and I want to finish by just showing you like how would you ever actually use this. Okay, so I'm going to start by this is a problem that I mentioned in the first little video, just about how we would end up using the distributive property, where it kind of comes from. So we said if we had a $9 meal and a $2 meal and 5 people were eating it, we could either do 5 times the total amount of the meal, or we could break it up and say 5 times the meal plus 5 times the dessert. And we see that those are the same. Now I'm going to bring up the notes that we took today. So this was the one that we had printed out for us, and so this was from the textbook, and we see that we have it written right here using variables. The product of a number and a sum. So product means multiplication, so it's a times two numbers being added together, is the same as the sum of the individual products of the addends and the number. Okay, so it sounds a little weird, but it's the same as the sum, the addition, of the products of the addends. Those are the two numbers you're multiplying together, so that's a times b and a times c. So ab plus ac. So these are always going to be the same. No matter what numbers I put in here for a, b, and c, this is always going to work out and be true. Okay, this distributive property is always going to be true. And so one thing we can do when we're doing these problems is we can also look at, and we can use these notes here, we can say, all right, so here's my problem. Which side of this does it look like? Okay, if I got something that looked like this and I had to rewrite it, I'd say, okay, well, this 5 looks a lot like the A, this 9 looks a lot like the B, and the 2 looks a lot like the C. So then I could just follow this format, okay, AB plus AC. Okay, or if I got the problem like this and I was asked to rewrite it, again, I could look right here, I can see, looks like this right side. I'm going to take that number that's repeated, that 5, that's going to be on the outside of my parentheses, and then inside I'm going to put the two numbers with the operation taking place. Okay, so we're going to look at the first two problems from the homework. And so what happened is I gave you one way to write the problem, and then you had to rewrite it using the distributive property. So the first one we had 3 times 8 plus 9, and then there was like a little dotted line, right? And you had to rewrite it on the other side and then prove by evaluating both that it equals the same thing. So I'm going to take my handy notes. I'm going to see that 3 is the A, the 8 is the B, the 9 is the C. So to rewrite it, I just have to apply or distribute this 3 to that 8 and distribute it to the 9. So I would rewrite it like this. I would have 3 times 8 plus 3 again, so that's my A, times 9. And then I would just do the math to prove that this works. I'm going to use order of operations here. So those go together. That gives me 17. Okay, and then I'm going to just put the 3 right here. And then on this side, I'm going to multiply those together. 3 times 8 gives us 24. Put my plus symbol. 3 times 9 is going to give us 27. Okay, and then I can just multiply those out. Okay, and if I need to do the multiplication over here, 17 times 3, that's totally fine to write out your steps. In fact, I'd encourage that. Okay, 21, 3 times 1 gives us 3, 5. So we get 51 as an answer over here. And if we did this correct, we should also get 51 over here. I can stack the numbers to add them normal way. Okay, 11, 51. So we get 51 for both of those. So we can see using the distributive property to rewrite works so far. Okay, it keeps the problem the same. It's just a different way to write it. So then our second problem, we were given 4 times 3 plus 4 times 8. Okay, so this now looks like which side of the one? It looks like this right side right here. So I can see the number that's being repeated is that A. I can see the number that is, this one would be our B and this one would be our C. It matches up. So I'm going to rewrite it. This little dotted line. 4 is on the outside of the parentheses. Again, touching the parentheses, that's multiplication. And then we put the 3 plus 8 in the middle there. Okay, and then it's just a matter of solving it. 12 plus 32. On this side, 3 plus 8 gives us 11. Okay, or I can keep a number touching parentheses like that. That still means multiplication. So this would give us 44. I add those together, 12 plus 32, 4, 4. So that also gives me 44. So again, just because I rewrite the problem a different way I'm still going to get the same answer. It's two ways to look at a problem. Okay, so for the homework, I was asking you just to do this a couple times, going back and forth, and also to even see, does it work for subtraction too? Because all the other properties we looked at, associative and commutative, those are primarily dealing with addition and multiplication. Okay. So then I wanted to show you two quick examples of a way that you might actually use this. One will be when you are starting to do a little bit more in the way of algebra. Kind of do this down here in the corner. You might end up with something like 7 times x plus 3. And you're trying to kind of simplify that a little bit. So you would use the distributive property and distribute that 7 over the x and over the 3. Rewrite that as 7x, again coefficient means multiplication, plus 7 times 3, or 7x plus 21. And once you have it set up like that, then you could probably end up getting closer to solving it. Okay, so like if I said this equals 0, right? Now I could go ahead and solve this. Again, this is nothing we have done. We haven't done anything like this yet. But if I had a problem, I would have to use the distributive property to kind of figure out what would make this true. At least that's one way I could solve it. Another way that people actually use this is, you might even do this right now, is they just use it in their head. People who are really good at mental math often do this automatically in their head. So if they had a multiplication problem like 7 times 55, they're probably not going to multiply 7 times 55 all in their head and work out, kind of imagine what it looks like, but they're probably going to break this into saying this is the same thing as 7 times 50 plus 5. Okay, I can break that into two parts. And then I could rewrite that as saying, well, that's the same thing as 7 times 50 plus 7 times 5. Okay, and then this is probably the mental math that we can easily do. 7 times 5 is 35 plus 0 is 350. 7 times 5 is 35. Okay, and then you could just add those two together, so 385. So if someone is doing quick mental math with bigger numbers, they're probably breaking the number apart and turning it into two multiplication problems. So they're kind of using the distributive property in their head. Those are two places that you will use it. So again, mental math, and then once you get more into solving equations. But the key thing right now that we're focusing on is just practicing using it to rewrite expressions. Okay. All right.